you teach about money, and I think personal finance is something that's was always a taboo topic to talk about. But with the new social construct that we live in, where people are more open about talking about finances and personal finances, um, I think it's becoming more normal. Um, I would love to get the boring stuff out of the way, um, and talking about compound interest. Um, and so I believe you want to walk us through an example of compound interest and how your money could really do wonders for you, because clearly savings is not enough. With the cost of inflation and living, like you want your money to work for you. So I'll hand it off to you.
Sure. Well, first, thanks for the introduction. My gosh. Yeah. Um, the biggest thing that I see, and this is something that I grew up with, my mom would always say, you got to save money. You got to save money. You got to save money. But unless you're rich, unless you're making $1 million per year, you're never going to save your way to wealth, right? The median salary is $60,000 per year. No one's going to save their way to building wealth. It's just not possible. So we have to put our money to work. And you mentioned compound interest, beautiful thing. And yeah, we have to take that extra step of putting our money to work so it grows, so it multiplies over time. So we
Yeah.
can pull up just a simple calculator here just to demonstrate. How
Yeah,
do you want to
yeah,
do
yeah.
this?
So DJ, can you show us? Can you share your screen? I believe Imran's going to walk us through a few examples of what compound interest can do for us here. Okay, Imran, can you just explain some of this stuff for in layman's term for someone like myself who doesn't really understand a whole lot about money?
Sure, let's start with something that everyone knows. Everyone knows how to save money in a bank account. Pretty straightforward. So you can say, I'm going to save $500 per month. So we can put 500 in this first field here. And then in the second field, we can also do $500. And that's going to be the monthly. The first 500 is just like an initial 500. And let's say we do it for 40 years. Now, the largest banks here in America, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they're paying about 0.01% APY on your cash. It's an interest rate. It's supposed to be a reward, kind of a shitty one for keeping your cash with them. So for that field, put 0.01. Are you able to put a period there? Or is it just,
I don't think so. I don't think he's able to put a period in there. Can we
okay.
can we round up
We can
what's
effectively put
down?
zero because you're not earning really anything. So might as well just put zero there. That's how little these banks are paying you.
Right.
um, okay, this calculator's not. I suppose we put a zero one, see what happens. Suppose we can just do one. Okay, cool. That's fine. So you're saving 500 bucks a month for 40 years. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm a badass. I'm gonna have so much money. But it's less than 300 grand, and that's before inflation. After inflation is probably closer to like 180, 190, something like that. So what we want to do instead is invest our money. And everyone always says, invest your money. What the hell does that even mean? How do I do it? Various ways. You can invest in the stock market. That's probably the most simple route. And you're essentially investing your money in hundreds, thousands of companies here in the US, around the world, who are providing services and products, right? Phones and cameras and uh, coffee, you name it. The CEOs, the engineers, the designers, the salespeople, they're all now working for you to make you richer, to make you wealthy. So that's essentially what's happening. You're investing in many, many companies around the world. And if they make a profit, they increase profit margins and grow their business, you're going to get a piece of that. So that's what investing in the stock market does. On average, it has returned about 10% per year over the last 30, 40, 50 years. After inflation, 7%. So let's put 7% in there and see the difference. Substantial,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Substantial.
We should stop the podcast here. This is it. This is all we
Yeah.
need to know.
Yeah. GG, guys. Take it easy.
So to talk a little bit about that, where exactly are they investing your money? Is it in a stock? Is it in a basket of companies?
Good question. Yeah, beginners are going to think, oh, I'll just invest in the companies I know. Oh, I know Apple, I have an iPhone, or I watch Netflix, I'll do Netflix. The problem is, if you look at the top 10 companies in the US over the last three, 4 decades, you're going to see something very interesting. You're going to see that it has changed every single decade. So sure, Apple, Nvidia are super sexy right now, especially Nvidia. But historically speaking, every company has sort of fizzled out, not gone out of business necessarily, but has sort of just lost the steam. And then they got replaced by a different company. The reason why we want to avoid individual stocks, at least for the vast majority of our portfolio, is for that reason. Because companies come and go, competitors come and go, and we've seen businesses completely destroyed. Like back in 2005, for example, there were two phone companies, both named after a fruit. One of them was doing absolutely phenomenal. They were the business phone. If you were running a business and you did not have this phone, you were not a business owner. This company was called BlackBerry. You remember BlackBerry?
I do. I had one actually.
Okay, yeah, they were
You're really
great.
you're really aging me out here.
I'm there with you, dude. Don't worry. So back in the day, BlackBerry, they were crushing it. You look at them now, they're dead. Like their stock
Yeah.
price is dead. So what we want to do instead is invest in index funds. Imagine you go to a smoothie shop and they're like, "Hey, we have a strawberry smoothie and a blueberry smoothie and a banana smoothie." You're like, I want a mix of everything. So they have like the everything smoothie. They got everything kale and spinach and blend it all up. You're done. That's what index funds are. You're not investing in just Apple or Nvidia or Google. You're investing in for example, the top 500 companies, largest 500 companies in the US. That's an S&P 500 index fund. And the beauty of it is not only is it diversified, you're getting a little bit of everything, but it is low cost compared to a financial advisor, which I think we'll talk about later. And it's self-cleansing. So sure, Nvidia's, Apple, they're kind of at the top right now. But as I mentioned earlier, decade over decade, it's like a leaderboard. It's constantly changing. And you don't do anything. This money is managed for you. If Nvidia dies out, cool, your money's going to get taken out of them and put into somebody else. It's fully, fully hands off.
Wow. So you're saying for me to make $1.3 million in 40 years, all I would need to do is invest $500 a month into these index funds. And so I'm picturing a 20-year-old who says, "Oh, I could do that." And in 40 years, when I'm 60, around the age of retirement, I'll have X amount of dollars. Now, and we're not even um, putting in the changes as you get older, you make more money. So could we do another scenario with someone who says, "Hey, I'm 50 years old and I haven't really started in investing and I feel like it's too late for me." Can we do a scenario for them?
Absolutely. The beauty of being older is the IRS allows us to invest more. We didn't really talk about like what accounts to invest in, various different accounts, but we want to prioritize the tax advantage accounts, the Roth IRAs, the 401k. So if you're in your 50s, you can do catch up contributions, an extra like thousand or two. And so sure, we can do something like maybe a 10 or 15-year investment horizon. And I don't know how much you want to do per month, 1,000 maybe, just to see what we
Um,
get.
I, I feel like at that age, you're making more money and you probably have somewhat of a decent like investment start. Um, so I feel like you would probably be investing a little more than like your average 25, 30-year old. So if I could just say maybe can we do $2,000? Like, hey, I'm going to put $2,000 aside to invest in, and let's say they have maybe like $40,000 already saved.
Okay, cool. So do 40,000 in that first field.
Okay.
And then in the second field, we'll do 2,000. And let's say we do it for 10 years. Okay, so a little over $500,000. Now, here's the interesting
Yeah.
thing. We're doing after inflation. So just to get some context, if we change that 7% to 10%, this is potentially what you would see before inflation, assuming the stock market continues to return
Yeah.
10% per year. Average inflation is about 3%. So seven's a nice conservative number.
Yeah. And are there any other scenarios you want to run through? That was just the one I had off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think the coolest one is starting early and completely stopping all investments going forward. So let's say you're a badass, you're 20 years old, you learned this information way sooner than the rest of us. And let's say you start with zero in field one. Let's say you're doing $1,000 a month. You're living at home. Let's say we'll leave it at 10 years. We have about $170,000. So let's just see what happens if we leave this alone for another 30 years. So now in the first field, put $170,000 and put zero for the monthly investment. If it doesn't let you, we can just do one. And then now change the investment horizon to 30 years. Pretty nuts, right? So we invested
Wow. Wow.
$1,000 per month for 10 years, and we're like, we're done. We're just going to let it ride for another 30 years, see what happens. And this
Yeah.
is this is compound interest in action.
Okay. EJ, thank you so much. And Imran, thanks for that example. That was very helpful. So I guess to quote, the great Warren Buffett, who has a ton of one-liners, who talks about it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And that's what it seems like a lot of investors lack, where they tend to time the market. Um, I guess, what is the biggest mistake you see in people who want to make an abundant amount of money in their investment portfolio, but they seem to just kind of F up along the way?
It's two main things. I see young Gen Z men do this all the time. We're in a time where there's this sort of hyper gambling activity happening with Gen Z men because of various economic situations. We won't dive into that just now, but timing the market and then trading stocks, investing in individual stocks. So we'll go for the first one first. So timing the market. People will say, "Oh my gosh, the market is so high, it's too expensive. I'm gonna just wait." The issue with that is people just wait and wait and wait and wait. Oh, it's too high, it's too low, it's too high, it's too low. Oh, my broke uncle said it's going to go lower, and they never invest. It happens all the time. And meanwhile, they're just missing out on all this wealth. It's happened endless times in history where we hit an all-time high. Everyone's like, "Oh, I'm out of here," and it just keeps on going. It's happened in recent years, just in the last like 5 years. It just keeps happening with this AI
Yeah,
boom.
this is amazing, because you're going into kind of the question I had personally wanted to ask you, because I also want to up my game when it comes to personal finance. I'm in this current battle currently of figuring out if I want to stockpile a bunch of money for an emergency day fund, or should I invest more into the market? Um, and I very happily paid off all my debt, student loans, and all that stuff like this past month. So very exciting period for me. So like I'm like, okay, which road do I go? Like the market looks a little frothy, exactly like you were saying. It's like with the AI boom, but it's like, oh, there's that mindset of like timing the market, or do I go with the emergency day fund route? But I guess that's more of like subjective, because you'll have to dive into my finances and kind of figure that out. Um,
Yeah, generally speaking, emergency fund essential. So if you don't have that already built up, at
yeah.
least 3 months of expenses, ideally six. And if you're self-employed, I'd say 9 to 12 even, because if you're self-employed, your income's fluctuating. So absolutely build that up before you invest a penny.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Um, and let's talk a little bit about financial advisors. I mean, people who talk about, like when we talk about money, and people get really skeevish about it, and they say stuff like, well, I don't really know much about investing. I need to go to an advisor, and advisors are really expensive. So, first, can you maybe uh, demystify some of the myths around, like, I don't know about money and I can actually learn about money?
Absolutely. So when people hear all the stock market, index funds, mutual funds, expense ratios, they're just like, this is for like rich white people. I can't do it. I'm going to hand it off to an advisor. Oh, they only charge a 1% fee. That's 1% so low. Yeah, let's just do it. They'll just handle it for me. Two issues with advisors. Before that, in 10 minutes, Amir, you can open up an account, connect your bank account, set up an automated investment, and you're done. 10 minutes. So it's so much easier than most people think, right? Even my mom
Oh,
could do it.
yeah.
It's so easy.
Is there a use case for advisors out there for people who make a a ton of money and maybe their financial situation is complex and they own a bunch of businesses?
Yes, I think there are valid use cases for financial advisors. The issue is two things. You have advisors. I kind of see the financial planning industry as two fields. You have on one side flat fee advisors who are awesome. They're going to charge you either an hourly rate or a package rate for like 4, 5, 6 sessions, whatever it is. That's great. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And the best use case, in my opinion, is retirement planning. Retirement planning is it can be extremely complex, and it's a valid use case because we don't want to run out of money in retirement because we're not going to have an income. On the other side of the spectrum are these financial advisors who are charging a what they call an asset under management fee, AUM fee. And this is where things go south. The fee structure seems extremely innocent. So we're like, hey, we'll manage your money for you for only a 1 to 2% fee. You're like, that's like a fraction of the sales tax I pay. I pay 10% sales tax here in Washington. Yeah, here's my money. Go ahead. What people don't realize is that regardless of them making you money or not, they're going to charge you a fee based on however much they're managing. So if you have, let's say, $100,000 or $1 million, they're going to charge you a percent, 1 or 2% of that per year, regardless of performance. They can lose you 100,000, 200,000. They're still going to take their fee. On top of that, there is this massive conflict of interest potentially for some of these advisors where they're investing your money in products that are going to earn them commissions, right? Sounds kind of fishy already.
Yeah.
On top of that, it gets worse. Over 90% of financial professionals who are managing portfolios, they underperform the S&P 500, the index we talked about earlier, the top
Yeah. Yeah.
500 companies, right?
Hmm.
The longer they try to beat the market, the worse they perform. So like over a 30-year period, for example, it's like well over 95% of them. So you're paying high fees and you're underperforming the market. You're getting hit from both sides.
What are they doing? Why do these jobs even exist? Like it blows my mind when people when you're saying this because it's like there are so many financial institutions out there with financial advisors as like their as a department. Like what's the
Yeah.
purpose of them? Is it just really to push their product and these commission-based fees to their clients?
It's
Oh
it's to
my
make money.
God.
It's a money making machine. Yeah, because they trust these people because they're financial professionals. They have credentials. They've taken all these tests. But if you dig into it, they underperform. They charge crazy fees. There's potentially for some of them a conflict of interest. It's crazy. And what's nice is the industry is changing. People are realizing this, and they're
Yeah.
realizing the power of index funds. And so it's slowly changing, which is nice.
Uh, what should a person do if the market crashes?
Absolutely nothing. Keep investing. Unless you're going YOLO into Tesla or Palantir, then get the fuck out. You're gambling. So if and when I should say when, it's not if, it's when the
Yeah.
stock market crashes, when the next recession happens, you just move on. You just keep investing.
But
You're done.
my portfolio is down 20%. Like shouldn't I be taking action or doing something to mitigate some of these losses?
You
Let's
would
say I have a
think.
div
Yeah, you would think. Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, in his book, The Little Book of Common Sense Investing, he has an analogy of like the more moves you make, the worse you're going to perform. So, like, if you just go and automate it, you are vastly going to outperform pretty much everyone the financial professionals, the people taking all these steps of trading or backing out when the market's kind of shaky. But really, you just ride out this volatility. So, historically speaking, if you just zoom out 50, 60, 70, 100 years, it's just an upward trending line. There are plenty of dips along the way, of course, but that is the what they as they say that the ticket to entry really is the volatility. And you mentioned Warren Buffett earlier. He has a lot of awesome quotes. One other quote he has is the stock market is a tool to transfer wealth from the impatient to the patient, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So perfectly said by the legend. So yeah,
Yeah.
TLDR, you just keep investing.
Yeah. He's got so many incredible one-liners. And I think I heard him also say, um, Berkshire Hathaway is set up in a way where it never runs out of money, and they've got a stockpile of $100 billion in cash, and it's just insane to think about. Yeah. So, but what ends up happening when the market does crash? What do most people end up doing? And maybe can you talk a little bit about that and why? What's like the psychology behind why they do that?
Yeah, I think it's rooted in self-preservation, right? People see that they're losing money and it doesn't feel good, right? On top of that, where's our attention these days, Amir?
Social media.
It's on these
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah.
How do people get clicks? How do how these news outlets get clicks? Well, it turns out negative news makes a lot of money. So stock market dropped 10 basis points, lost $1 billion in market cap. These it sounds scary, but
Yeah.
it's really not a big deal. Happens all the time. It's the nature of the stock market. So you have to understand that we're in this like attention grabbing, attention seeking economy where it's like attention is worth a lot of money. So you're gonna feel freaked out because of these headlines. They're gonna want you to take some actions, but they're just trying to get clicks.
Now, can I ask you, do you foresee a black swan event happening in the market? Because you said it's not if, it's when it does. So I'm curious to know, as someone who's, knee deep into the finance world, is to you, what is something that may be coming in? And I just want to preface by saying that it's not a black swan if we're guessing it and we're talking about it. But what are some volatilities out there that you see? And I'm curious to just learn some of those from you.
The answer is yeah, absolutely yes, 100%, 1,000% yes. There will be more black swan events. We've seen, let's see, historically speaking, just in the last few decades, we had the dot-com bubble. In the dot-com bubble, the stock market didn't reach all-time highs for I think 13 years. Then we had the housing crisis in 2008, COVID recently. So we've seen many of these black swan events. They'll continue happening. That's a guarantee. We don't know when, obviously.
Yeah, right.
So that could be one reason for volatility. Another thing could be, wars, whatever other short-term events could happen. Maybe not necessarily black swan events. We could see potentially. I don't want to speculate
AI
here.
bubble,
I was just gonna
AI
say AI
bubble.
bubble. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I heard the other day Sam Altman talking about how we are in an AI bubble. And the more I use AI, the more I see, okay, like, yeah, this kind of does feel like a bubble. Like my work has gotten better, or faster, but like it's made me like slightly more productive, but like nothing in a way where it's as hyped up as it seems nowadays.
yeah. I mean, the tools are great. They're not, I'm not like going to be replaced anytime soon as a content creator, but but I use it in my workflow, and yeah, it's generally helpful. But with any new technology, there's going to be hype, and that hype is going to be what potentially influences that bubble. All this money is being poured into these companies. Not many of them will provide as much value. All this is normal. If you look back, even during the dot-com bubble, you had all these companies getting all this VC money, but they didn't really have anything to show for. Only a few companies did.
Yeah,
And if you look at many companies, that's sort of the trend. And in the book Psychology of Money, they talk about these sort of tail ends where if you look kind of like at your like distribution curve, the very end of it where there's like not a whole lot of activity, that's where the money's being made. So like Apple iPhone, right? So same thing's gonna happen. You have like OpenAI and then all these other companies that are doing AI stuff that are just gonna kind of go out of business and not do a whole lot. So
yeah,
we're
it's
just we're
kind
just
of
seeing the same thing happen over and over again, generally speaking.
Yeah, it's kind of like the dot-com bubble. If I could compare this cycle, like this AI cycle, it almost kind of feels like a dot-com bubble. I mean, I was very young at the time, but just kind of reading about it, hearing people about it, the stories, it seems very frothy. Where a company would just add a dot-com to the end of their company, and it would be like, oh, they're an internet company, and boom, like their stock, soared by 1,000%. Um, so let me ask you, how did you get into finance, and how did your personal journey start?
Mm. Yeah, people think I have like I'm a financial advisor or an analyst, but my background's in engineering, completely different. But it must have started just because, family was always struggling with money growing up. Maybe that was, that kind of started most of it. But I think really what triggered my investment journey was I was first job out of college. My buddy was talking about, stock market investing. I'm like, it's just for like rich white people making all these excuses, right? And then once I learned that, oh, you don't just save money, you have to invest it, or you'll never retire. You'll never retire, build wealth, and that sort of like switch went off in my mind. And then once I dug a bit deeper, I realized, oh, like personal finance, it's kind of like engineering. Engineering's problem solving, but the tools are, programming languages and oscilloscopes and structures. But personal finance, it's like Roth IRAs, 401ks, index funds, budgets, all these strategies. So there was a nice little parallel between the two. It's really just problem solving, but different tools. And then on top of that, people were always asking me questions. Oh, like, what's this like Roth IRA thing? Blah, blah, blah. So I was sort of like the IT guy and the money guy in the family and the friend group. So that just sort of blew up and eventually started making content. And, here we are years later.
What money mistakes did you make early on into your finance journey?
Oh, man. How much time you got? The biggest mistake is not starting sooner. My first job, I was in high school working as a busboy. I could have easily saved 20%, 30% of my paycheck, but I was buying guitars and all this stuff. And number two, buying cars, leased a car, all these things that are just outside of my budget, right?
Yeah.
And then once I started investing, I was trading stocks. I was going all in on stocks, doing all this degenerate behavior. Right. When I first started, I was going like all into, AMD or like Intel or like Qualcomm, all these like computer companies. Fortunately, I got lucky on a few of them. I didn't lose, a lot of money. But yeah, just endless mistakes. Timing the market, absolutely. Not having an emergency fund, not using credit cards properly. Every mistake in the book I was making.
Did you ever short sell companies and can you maybe talk a little bit about why that is very dangerous? Because I have heard of people short selling companies and their accounts completely blowing up and them actually having to owe money to the brokerage firms afterwards.
Yeah, so when you short a stock, basically what you're doing is you're saying, "Hey, I think Amir LLC is going to go down in price. So I'm gonna borrow a stock from someone else. Let's say it's $100. I'm gonna borrow it. I expect it to go down to like $80. So I'm gonna sell it right away. The stock drops to 80, hopefully. I'm gonna buy it again, and then I'm gonna give it back to the person I borrowed it from, and I'm gonna pocket that difference. So that's like kind of shorting 101.
Yeah. So
The
you're
reason
basically
why
betting against the company is in a nutshell. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. You're betting against it. Yeah. And you can go the opposite as well. And there are various forms of trading like this, like derivatives, like options, futures. But really, it boils down to you're speculating. It's pure speculation. Sure, there might be some data to back it, but at the end of the day, it's speculation. And if we look at the data, well over 90%, 97%, some studies show 99% of people trading, doing these short term bets lose money long term. So you might be seeing, again, social media, you're seeing a highlight reel. You're seeing these people, these 18-year-old kids sometimes making 10, 20 grand trading per month. And then now every kid feels left behind. Dude, on these live streams, you've been in the live streams. These
Yes,
kids,
I
they
see them
join.
all the time.
It's constant. It's constant. These 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds are like, hey, I need to come up now. I'm seeing these kids making all this money. I'm like, brother, you are experiencing what is that bias called?
Euphoria,
Survivorship
fear,
bias.
okay.
It's
What
survivorship bias.
and what
So
is
what
that?
that so what it is back in like World War II days, they wanted the military wanted to understand how can we better reinforce our planes, our fighter jets, to survive battles. So they analyzed all the planes that came back, all the bullet holes, and they're like, okay, cool, we just got to patch up here, boom, we're good. And then the lead scientist was like, oh, hold on, we're only analyzing the planes that came back, but not the planes that went down in battle. So they gathered some more data and they realized, oh shit, our initial output was wrong. We have to enforce here, reinforce there, beef this up. So they ignored a complete this complete data set here on the side. So to kind of relate it back to this, we're seeing just the tiniest percentage of people. The vast majority of data shows that they're losing money. And it makes sense because social media, no one's going to want to post that they lost 10, 20 grand in the stock market. Everyone's going to want to post their vacations and their cars and the money they're making, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like everyone's rich, but the reality is they're not.
I'm
That's survivorship
smirking
bias.
I'm smirking because I have nightmare stories about me day trading uh and losing money.
Mm.
And I think about that and I just kind of like have to shake myself out of it because it's like holy crap. Like doing what was I thinking? I did learn a little bit about the market. So I wanted to ask you, are there any benefits to day trading? And is there a scenario for someone who wants to learn about trading and investing and saying, hey, maybe go ahead, start with a little brokerage account of like $1,000.
Yeah, if you're interested in it, first understand the data. You have to understand the data. That's the most important part. You have to understand that the people that are making good money trading usually are on Wall Street. They have highly sophisticated trading tools. They're geographically located close to these exchanges for latency purposes. So understand that first. If you still want to trade, you could start with paper trading. This is your basically fake money, right?
Okay.
Although the traders that I've talked to that are successful, which is like maybe one, they'll say paper trading and real trading completely different because the emotions as soon as you're using real money,
Yes.
completely different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything changes. But sure, if you absolutely want to trade, I'd say allocate a small amount of money and just don't let that get out of hand. If you lose it, you lose it. Sorry. You could even treat it as like entertainment money. So if you set aside a certain percentage of your income for entertainment, like going to the movies, buying video games, boba, stuff like that, if you want to put some of that towards some stock trading or whatever, sports betting, kids love to sports bet these days, go for it. But just understand the data, understand that long term, it is extremely difficult to be profitable.
Okay. Uh, my mind goes back to the putting your money or putting your eggs into one basket. For someone who says, "Hey, I could have like thrown $20,000 into Nvidia and it could have given me a 2,000% return rather than, a 7% return on a diversified portfolio." How do you counter that? A Nvidia, a Bitcoin, like how do you tell this person like, "Hey, this probably is not the best thing to do."
Story of my life. I still haven't found the right answer. I've talked to just countless of these young Gen Z men. Um, what I found is the more just because they have the data doesn't mean they're going to make the right decision. What I've seen is they just have to go and make mistakes and understand, oh yeah, no, this is the wrong call. But what you can do is just say, hey, what you're experiencing is hindsight bias. Sure, we can look back and be like, oh yeah, obviously Apple was a great company to invest in. But like you can't say that now. You can't just say, oh, this company's going to do amazing. We can look back and it's really easy to say, oh yeah, Bitcoin. Oh, but really, you have a crystal ball, sure, but it's impossible. It's impossible to determine which companies are going to blow up.
Blow up in a good way, but also blow up in the sense like you could just lose all your money. I mean, there's been so many companies with uh frauds. Like the latest one I could think about was like Nikola, which was like rolling their cars off the hill and making it look like they were driving. It was ran on hydrogen, apparently. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There was a what was that Theranos also was one of them.
Right, right. It was like take a sample of my blood and it'll give you all the list of, what's your blood type and if you have any issues. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So what is the most common issue that you see with young men and women who come to you and say, "Hey, can you audit my finances?" Um, what is the most common issue you see with them? Like, what are they struggling with?
These days, I see a lot of people hoarding cash. which is you think is a good thing, and it is in some way, but they're hoarding cash because they don't know what to do. So the downside there is if we're holding a lot of cash for an extended period of time, there is an opportunity cost. So if we're not investing in the market, which we saw earlier, 7% return, we have these high yield savings accounts and money market funds that are returning 4%. People are like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Those aren't going to last forever. So there's an opportunity cost there. Same with real estate. Number two, people have debt, high interest consumer debt, and they also have the cash to pay that debt off, but they don't want to part with that cash. It's probably the most interesting thing I've seen. And it does make sense. So you have like, 10, 20 grand in credit card debt, 40 grand in cash. And in my head, I see that. I'm like, oh, you dump that cash on the credit card debt instantly, be done. And they're just like, oh, but it's like, I like that 40K makes me feel good, right? It makes me feel safe, right? So there's this psychology component there. But that credit card debt, that high interest debt, it's so high, like 25% on average. And we saw earlier 10% before inflation for the stock market. Ain't no way you're beating that, right? A 25% return. It's impossible to get a 25% return long term. So those are probably the two most common issues: debt, and then just not knowing what to do with their cash, just sitting on too much cash for too long.
So do you walk them through a scenario and say, hey, on this debt, you may be being charged 20% AUM or some obscene amount of predatory number like that when you could just pay this off? And what is their initial response? And I'm asking you these questions, these behavioral questions, because I see you engaging with your audience all the time. So for me, this is great. And for my audience, it's great to see this.
Absolutely. The reaction always is, wow, when it's written down and I can see it, it makes sense. And if we dive into that a bit, I forget which book talks about this. I think it's Atomic Habits by James Clear. They talk about how of all of our sensors, our eyes, our ears, our touch and taste, the a larger portion of our brain is dedicated to perceiving um, vision data, data that our eyes see. So for most people, they're managing their money up here. Okay, yeah, I spent this much on boba. I'm investing this much. Yeah, I guess it's good enough. Yeah, I have this much debt. Yeah, I guess GG. Yeah, easy. I got it.
Yeah.
But when you write it down, they're like, wow. Okay, I see these like numbers and lines going here. Wow, it makes sense. Okay, yeah, I see. So to answer your question, when we run the numbers on the credit card debt, I'll say, hey, here's how much debt you have. You're currently making these small payments. It's going to take you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years to pay it off, and you're going to pay $10,000, $15,000 in interest. And they're just like, oh shit,
Wow.
okay.
Wow.
I
Oh
didn't
my
realize that.
gosh.
Yeah, if you want, we can pull up a calculator, but it's astronomical. People making minimum payments on this debt, and at a 25% APR over 10 years, it's a lot of interest.
Yeah, when you were talking about like keeping everything up here, it's kind of like how I was uh, for a pretty long time with my personal finance until I actually sat down and had to get real and talk about it and list it down. And I realized there was a huge shift in that too, where before that, when it was all in my head, when I would go get coffee, I kind of felt bad about it afterwards. Like I would get like a $5 Starbucks coffee or $6 Starbucks coffee, and I would be like, God, I should have. Why did I get this coffee? I could have just made it at home. But then, after um going through my finances, listing them down, and knowing, okay, well, here's my fixed costs and here's my discretionary budget and here are my investments. That psychology shift felt so freeing. Like it was just like, oh yeah, that's great. Like I know, like it's almost like a well-oiled machine. Like it just kind of churns, and I don't have to worry about like making myself feel bad after getting, a $5 coffee. So were there psychological shifts that you see in people as well when it's almost like aha moment for them?
100%. What you described is I think is most people's reaction. It's like, oh man, I feel guilty for this $5 coffee. It's not a big deal, right? Like we talked about investing for 40 years. Like, why the fuck are you going to wait till you're 60 to enjoy your lives, right?
Right.
We don't want to do that. So you mentioned buying coffee. That's great. If you love coffee, Amir, buy that coffee, right? You've
Right.
allocated some money for investments. You've allocated some money for having fun. Spend it now, right? Spend it now, and you don't give two shits. Just have fun. Um, I think almost every person I've audited who we've done this exercise with, they're like, okay, yeah, maybe I don't feel bad about that, this video game that I bought or that coffee that I bought. Since now I'm investing, I know my numbers, right? We've carved out a budget for having fun. Okay, okay. And if you still feel bad, there's another strategy you can follow. It's called the 2X rule. It's from a book called Just Keep Buying by Nick Majuli. Basically, it says that if you feel bad about buying that $5 coffee, take another $5, donate it, invest it, do something that's productive, something that's going to feel good to sort of cancel out the guilt. So plenty of
Okay.
strategies for solving that, but understanding your numbers, like you said, is such an important one.
And speaking of, you know, budgeting, what is there a percentage that a person should have their fixed cost under? Is it like 40%, 60%? Like what's a number where like, hey, I should allocate X amount to make sure that I have a roof over my head and my main stuff is kind of covered.
A common budget you'll hear online is 50-30-20, right? 50% for expense for needs, 30% for wants, 20% for savings. I think that's a good starting point. I think life's a little more challenging now, so I'd say save whatever you can comfortably save and don't stress out too much. You can focus on reducing costs and increasing income after that. I'd say no more than 60% of your income should go towards the essential stuff. So housing, transportation, groceries. When you go over that, it becomes harder to save. It becomes harder to have fun. But the reality is this cost of living has skyrocketed recently, right? Just 20 years ago compared to now, we need three times the median income to buy the median house. So, it's a lot more expensive now. And we have to be sort of conscious about that, not just say, oh, just save 30% of your income. It's easy. It's like, bro, people are struggling. They can't save 30% of their income, right? So save whatever you can. And if you can, focus on increasing your income, reducing unnecessary expenses, and even better.
Okay. It seems like making more money is always kind of it's always going to be helpful, right? To make when you're making more money. Um, because then you could invest more, you could save more, you could spend more money on yourself. Um, I heard you talking a lot about books. Are there any financial books that you recommend to people to
Oh,
read?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's see, a big one. Psychology Money was just such a game changer. Such a game changer. Like I came into this whole thing with like a technical mindset because I'm an engineer, right? All the technical stuff. That's like
Yeah.
20% of it. The issues are all psychology. Like 80+ % of it is like psychology. Especially when I'm talking to people. I've talked to like thousands of people up to this point, and most of it's psychology. It's crazy. So Psychology Money is essential. That's like without a doubt you have to read Psychology Money. Another good one is I Will Teach You How to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. Just Keep Buying by Nick Majuli. That one's really good. A good mix of data and psychology. And I think those are the top three money books I'd recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I come to you today with $1 million or someone, well, maybe not me, maybe someone else, someone comes to you today and says, "Hey, I've got $1 million here. How do I invest it?" What do you tell them?
I say, well, let's build a strong foundation. Let's make sure we are consumer debt free. So credit cards, let's wipe that out. Auto loans, wipe that out. Personal loans, potentially even student loans. Get a solid 6 months of expenses for emergencies in a high yield savings or money market fund, not Chase, not Bank of America, not Wells Fargo. Let's earn some interest on our cash. And then let's take care of our retirement. So if you don't need the money in the short term, I say just dump all of it into an index fund. If you are saving up for a house, cool, you can split that however you see fit. And the rest, enjoy. As simple as that. Yeah, keep it simple.
Okay, let's talk about money. Let's go back to money psychology. What's the biggest feedback or advice you would give to people about money psychology that would be beneficial for them in helping them get more comfortable with their money and lean in to these conversations with themselves, with their spouses, with their families, with their loved ones?
Mm. Yeah, psychology is always a tough one. Starting with the basics of just knowing your numbers, it's so important. Just
Like
know
I
your
read
numbers.
somewhere, yeah, sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to emphasize that I read somewhere like 50% of people don't know how much they make as a household, which was kind of baffling to me because I was like, oh my God, like that's kind of the foundation of it. Like that's like
Basic.
the like very minimum, bare minimum.
Yes. And to add to that, people that I audit, when I ask them, hey, what's your monthly net income? They're like, uh, I don't know, I make like $1,000 a week. And I'm like, well, we have to know how much we're making per month, right? We need to understand what we're spending our money on. So once we have that information, psychology usually changes a bit once you have that. Number two, I'd say understanding that social media is a highlight reel, right? Plenty of studies recently showing that the more time you're on social media, the unhappier you're going to be, the more you're going to compare yourself, right? All this and that. So understand that you're looking at a highlight reel. You're looking at the best version of everyone. You're also seeing a lot of negative news, but it's mainly because it's what gets clicks. So just understanding that it makes a massive difference, right? Reducing your screen time, massive difference. Just those two things alone is going to get you like 80% of the way there.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I hesitate putting out short content because I just feel like it doesn't really encapsulate everything. It doesn't really talk about the nuances of things, but um okay, okay. And is there any other financial advice that you'd give to anybody?
Generally speaking,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh man, what's a good one? What's a good
Like
one?
like maybe I could have been more prepared for this and asked you like, is there a scenario that you went through with somebody that you were like, oh my God, like or like sorry, they went, oh my God, like this was like like an aha moment for them.
Right now, we have about $1.7 trillion in auto loans here in the US. And one thing that young men realize a little later is that the new car smell fades, right? The dream car always somehow changes to the next dream car,
Yeah.
right? So we're sort of like moving the goalpost a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? There's also this goalpost moving when it comes to income. Amir, if I can just make 80 grand, bro, I'm set, right? Okay, we get to 80 grand. Okay, it's pretty cool. Okay, six figures. If I just make six figures, $100,000, Amir, I've made it, right? Okay, we do some work. Okay, now we're at $100,000. It's like, okay, can upgrade that car, right? Lifestyle inflation. Okay, if I can make 150, right? And we just keep moving that goalpost.
Yeah.
That is a recipe for burnout, really. So just understanding that at some point, once you have the essentials, that foundation, because you need money. You can't just say money doesn't buy happiness. You need money up to a
Right.
certain point. But once you
Mhm.
get to that point, the rest of it's sort of just, okay, I guess, yeah, I make all this extra money and, it's not really improving my life the way that the first 50, 60, 100K did, right?
Yeah.
So if you just understand that buying cars, right, not being mindful, right, all these things, really it comes down to experiences, relationships, right? The things that are not flashy,
Yeah.
right, on social media. That's the stuff that matters. That's the stuff that's going to make you happy and feel fulfilled,
Yeah.
right? So I know I just kind of jumbled a lot of shit there, but really, experiences. I cannot say that enough. Experiences. You can buy the cars, you can buy the watches, but they're going to get old. But that trip you took to Whistler Canyon with those friends, you're going to remember that for a really long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have this conversation with myself sometimes about like is it ever going to be enough? Because exactly what you had mentioned is how I felt. Where as I've gotten older, I've made more money and making more money, and it's just like, okay, oh, that's nice. Oh, six figures is nice, but I think I could do a little more than that. I could do better, and so. uh, Yeah, it's almost like you like the old adage of like a rat race. Like that is it. It's like you're just in this cycle of just continuously churning and wanting more and more and more. But really, what you should be valuing is the relationships, the memories, the trip. Um, yeah, and really using, I guess, money to do those things. Um, well,
Exactly.
Imran, I appreciate you coming on. This was definitely eye-opening for me in terms of learning some of the nuances about money. Is there anything else you want to add that I may have missed?
We talked about a lot. I would just say, guys, invest your money. Put your money to work, please.
Cool. Thank you.
My pleasure, man.